Hey, what is up, ladies and gentlemen? My name is Grief Drums, and today we're going to be continuing to build a map inside of the Arma Reforger Tools. For those of you that may have missed it, I uploaded a video the other day that pretty much explained how to get into the tools, how to start your world and get everything going. Today we're going to be diving a little bit deeper, going into the creation of forests, painting all of the terrain, and pretty much creating towns and bringing it all to life. So stick around and we'll get straight into it. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to do a forest, and then we're going to take that forest and how we work that to create fences around all this kind of stuff. But we'll leave the town for a minute. You'll notice that I have left this. In fact, I'll tell you what, let's do the painting first to tidy this up, because it will show you how to work it. So if you go onto the terrain one and you come over to terrain tool, you'll notice that paint is at the top. Now with this paint, we can actually utilize a paintbrush to paint the map, to give it some grass and stuff like that. Now the problem is right now we only have the default, which is the sat map underneath. So we need to go ahead and we need to give it different terrains that we want to utilize. So if we close all of this down, we come down to terrains and you click on common and then surfaces. Don't go into the surfaces folder, because you get presented with all of these which are locked and read only. And these are the ones that form, they seem to make up the ones that we're going to be using. If you click on the surfaces folder, you get presented with all of these ones that are green. By left clicking and then selecting all of them holding shift, you can click and drag these over to the terrain tool. It says cannot be undone. Do you want to continue? Yes. We now have a full selection. Now I'm going to save it here because I haven't saved it for a little while, which is daft of me, I know. But you'll notice the terrain tiles textures are building up at the top. We'll give it a couple of seconds to do that. But what we're going to do is we're going to grab some asphalt. We'll probably use a lot of grass as well, and some, I don't know what kind of forest we're going to use just yet. We'll take a look. The beaches are going to be pebbles, and we're going to need rock for the cliff faces. Now you'll notice that these squares here are showing up. Now in each of these squares you can only have 5 textures max. So we're all done, we're all set, we're ready to go. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab the cobblestone and we're going to come down to here and we're going to be painting this area. So we'll paint around. We don't want the radius to be too big. We're going to create the init surface map by clicking for the first time, and you'll notice we get a paintbrush. Now I'm going to reduce the radius of this. We're going to paint this area here. Now it looks messy at the minute, and I usually find that blending lots of different things together works really well. So blending some asphalt into this will work well. But I'm being a bit careful here because I don't want to use all of my 5 textures. You'll notice that if I'm hovering over this square here, at the top left it shows default and cobblestone that have been used. This one there's only default. So I don't want to use all the textures straight away and then be fighting it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come over here and I'm going to do all of the rocks first, because that's going to be important to do. This is just a nicety, adding this cobblestone. I can realistically extend the road out further if I want to. Or alternatively, get rid of the cobblestone and put grass there and have like a fenced off area. So we'll play with that in a second. But we're going to start with some rocks. And we're going to increase the radius. Probably not that big. Now the rocks are going to be all along the side. You don't really get grass growing on the side of things. That predominantly grows along the top, doesn't it? So when we get to the top section like this, we're going to leave that for grass. I'm going to go ahead and do all of this as a rocky side. And we'll probably go around and do most of the mountain, to be brutally honest, most of the island. But we'll see how we get on. And you'll notice that I'm even going down into the waterline slightly. We will come back and tidy that up in a minute, and I'll show you exactly what I mean. Now, the painting side of things, this all comes down to layering. It's like painting in real life. You can't just sort of throw it on, because you can see there's a clear definition here where it goes from rock to paint, from rock to grass, sorry. And it just looks a bit trash if you just leave it like that. So what we're going to do is we're going to paint a load of grass on, and then we will tidy it all. Now, one thing you'll notice is if you paint over the roads, it becomes a bit of a problem, because you actually start getting the grass coming up through the road. So be careful not to paint over the road. Just come up to the edge of it as close as you can. Now the sat map underneath will hide a lot of this. At the minute we can see it clearly because there's red, obviously. we're not going to have that red and black there when we import the other sat map.
Hey, this is Grief from the future. So since filming the video, what I've actually done is I found a couple of ways to mess around with the paint objects that can be really helpful. So for example, this section here that I've painted on the road, if you go ahead and turn the strength down and the radius down so it's nice and small, more accurate, if you go to default, you can actually just paint over sections and it returns it to the sat map. So as you can see, by getting rid of all this grass here, it's going back to the satellite image that I had initially overlaid. So by putting dark areas near the roads, you can actually hide a lot of the mess that you make with the paintbrush. One other thing to note is, for example, if you're trying to look at a certain section and you've already used too many different paints because you're limited to 5, one thing you can do is, let's go ahead and click on info and diags up here. And then you can click on an individual square. Now, this particular one here, if you keep an eye on the top left, it will show you how many different textures you've used in that one area. This square right here, as you can see at the top left, it's got default, it's got the coniferous forest, a deciduous forest, deciduous 2 and grass 3. Now the deciduous 2 is actually only 1.2% and the deciduous 1 is 1.4%. So we barely even use those. What you can do is you can click on them, you can right click and you can either merge it to default, so you know, the actual sat map that we've put on. You can merge it to forest coniferous base and it will get rid of that specific one and turn it into whichever one you're selecting from here. So we've accidentally put a crop field right here on this hill. And if you want to get rid of that, you click on info and diags, you select that specific square. As you can see, it's selected it. We've got 3 different types. We've got 1 is the default, 2 is the crop field, and 3 is grass 3. By clicking on crop field, we can merge it to default. That would replace it with the sat map, as you can see there. Or alternatively, you could have, if I go Control Z, you can merge it to something more appropriate like the grass. What we'll do for the purposes of this, I'll go ahead and show you. I've come up to the edge of the road there. We'll go to Terrain Tool, Manage, and we'll import the other sat map. Before I do, I'm just going to save it quickly. So this was our original one. We'll go ahead and open that. And you'll notice it's a lot less obvious where the definition is, where the actual road marker is. Now, as I said before, all of this definition is just wrong and horrible. So we're going to grab some more rock. We'll change the strength down again. We'll reduce the radius right down. And we're just going to increase the strength a little bit. Just a bit of touching up of the edges of the rocks, make some of them extend out a little bit and just make it look more interesting and real. Once you've done the painting and you're fairly happy with the setup for that, you want to go ahead and put some forests in. Now, if I zoom all the way out, you can see that there's a lot of darker areas here, which are predominantly going to be woodland. All of this mountain here, all of this, and all of this is going to be woodland area. So what we're going to do is we're going to click on the vector tool at the top, and we're going to use a polyline this time rather than a spline. Now the polyline, we're going to place a dot. Again, it's going to give us 2. And then from there, we're going to extend it out and then start clicking Control and clicking where we want this to go. So we're going to try and follow the sat map as best we can. It doesn't have to be perfect. With the sheer cliff face here, it could pose a bit of a problem. We might have to do some more sculpting in a minute, but we'll take a look at that in a second. Cool. So we've now got that laid out there. So that is our polyline area. Before, it's created like a spline shape entity for the roads. We'll go ahead and close that. We'll create a new active layer, and this is going to be called forests. We're going to grab that polyline. We're going to drag it into forests. And then what we're going to do is we're going to come down to here and we're going to go back to where we were previously with the roads. We're going to go to prefab library, generators, forests, and then we're going to select the forest we want from this resource browser. So I'm not sure what we want to go with here. So we'll try a couple of different things. We'll try spruce and see how that looks. We'll drag that up onto this. And as you can see, it just throws in an entire forest there made of spruce.
I kind of like how that looks, honestly. I do like that. I think it looks pretty cool. We could try some other ones, but I think for the most part, I think sticking with spruce could be pretty cool. So we'll go ahead and run with that. It seems to be working pretty nicely. There's no like trees sticking out crazy angles, so I think that looks pretty good there, honestly. We could try and drag this down a bit. That will extend the forest out. This doesn't need to be quite so far down. We'll bring it up. But this is just trial and error. This is all about just playing around and finding exactly where you want everything to sit. Every time you do it, it'll mess about with this. Now you'll notice underneath is just the sat map. There's no grass or anything like that under there. So we'll need to paint underneath it, and then we'll need to blend the grass on the outside, because obviously the light is hitting it differently to how it does inside of forests. So we'll go ahead, we'll grab the terrain tool, grab the paint, and we will grab forest deciduous. Now we've got a choice of 2 or 1. We'll go with 2 for now. We'll use a large radius. That's way too big. And we're just going to paint underneath all of this. We're going to be careful next to the road. We'll go ahead and grab the grass again, and we're going to extend the grass. Oh, no. Grass 3, wasn't it? Now, with this, we want this to eat into the forest very slightly. We don't want it to go too far in, but we want to make sure that there is a natural sort of adjustment between the two. You don't want it to just go from one to the other. You don't just walk into a forest and suddenly the ground changes entirely. So our island is slowly starting to come together. I'm going to add a couple more forests in very quickly, tidy it all up a little bit, and then we'll come back and we'll start tweaking some more interesting aspects like fences and stuff to make it start really looking alive. So we're going to come back over to the town. We're going to do a little bit more touching up of this area and just tidying it up, making it more of a town than anything. I've just been messing around in the woods, as you will have seen there, building some gentle paths that just sort of move through the woodland area. It's going to make it more interesting, more realistic. And further to that, running paths off into the woodland, just faint paths. Again, it's a realistic element that you would find in real life, so it's something that I like adding into the map. Further to that, I've put some extra bits in here. Just little props here and there that you can stumble across. So if I go and find the beetle trap, it's going to throw me under the ground. But there's little beetle traps and stuff like that just in the woods. It just makes it more, I don't know, immersive, I guess. So when it comes to creating fences and stuff, we can use the polyline tool for that as well, similar to how we did with the forests. I'm going to go ahead and create a fence from the back of this church. We're going to make a bit of a, not necessarily a graveyard, but we'll go ahead and put a bit of a fence out. I'd like to put another building over here somewhere, so we're not going to eat too far into this. This is almost like the church saying this part belongs to us. You know what I mean? This is our property. Prefab library, generators, walls, and then we can start looking at some of these. So we've got different wooden fences here. We've got a wooden fence old. Maybe some walls actually would be better. Stone walls? Let's give it a try. Yeah, I'm not really feeling that, to be honest. Let's try concrete. What's that like? No, that's too military for me. That's looking pretty good. That blends in nicely, doesn't it? Obviously, it needs a little bit of touching up. We will see if we can orient it to the terrain more. Why are we snapping to the terrain? There, we don't want that. Oh, I quite like that. That's cool. Gives you a little break in. That's looking pretty good there. We're going to sculpt this and increase the height of this terrain here very slightly. Wall steps a little bit. See how it steps just here? It goes up. I don't really mind that too much, but for the most part, that's pretty much there. We're going to put another one over on the other side. We'll continue this going over here. Okay, cool. I think that's looking pretty good. Slowly breathing some life. Go ahead and grab some more houses and buildings. Structures. We've got agriculture. We've got gates, barns, cow sheds. We've got all sorts we can play around with here. Civilian, commercial could be quite good. I'd like some more civilian houses, honestly. Three different prefab houses there. They all seem to go quite well together. So we can put these here and we can give them gardens maybe. Okay, so the way this road is set up, I don't like the way that the road is intersecting there. So what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to tidy this up a little bit. We're going to go ahead and go onto the vector one and we're going to go to the spline. This road here is causing some problems because of the angle that it's at. So I'm going to actually drag this over a little bit. We're going to have to do some more painting. That's not a problem. I think by tidying some of these roads up, obviously I've put these at an angle, it might be better to straighten them more. But guys, there you have it. I mean, for the most part, this world is slowly coming together, isn't it? You can see it's coming together. We've actually started to build a map. We've got a real sort of terrain that we can play with. If I go ahead and grab my camera manager, this is on the other side of the map. We'll move this. The map isn't going to be huge, but I mean, it's going to be big enough easily. We're going to have small little settlements. This is going to have too much grass inside that needs to be painted. So the floor here, you can see this floor is actually too high. This is the default floor. So we need to smooth all this out and sculpt it so it's more like this in here. You see it's just clipping through there. And all in here. So that's where the sculpting comes in. So by coming into the map and actually trying stuff out and testing it and looking, it provides you a lot of information. It really does. It's well worth doing. Okay, so there you have it. That is pretty much a quick rundown there. This town is, I think, you know, you could go forever. You really could when it comes to this kind of stuff. You could just keep tweaking and tweaking and adding stuff. This has taken me about, I don't know, 40 minutes to do. I've obviously done loads of little like spatters of paint and stuff. I've taken my time with it. But I haven't really kicked the arse out of it. It's not taken me a mass amount of time. I haven't got things like bins. There's a lot of extra little bits and bobs that I could do to improve on this and to make it better. Like I say, I've just kind of thrown this together reasonably quickly. You know, we've thrown together a gravestone, a church, and everything like that. We've got all that kind of stuff in there. If I go ahead and we'll save it quickly, this is the kind of, you know, view we'd get. This is what we'd see. Which, I'll be honest, I don't think it looks terrible. Things like that could use a bit of love. But the tweaking and the fine-tuning of this kind of stuff, like removing the grass from the steps and stuff, that's just something that you do slow time. You know, all of this kind of stuff I would need to remove. I've done it on a lot of the other houses. But, you know, it's about breathing life into the town and stuff. We've taken quite literally just nothing, a plain of land, and we've pretty much lifted it up. We've tidied it all up. We've made it better. We've made it into more of a believable world, utilizing these tools over a pretty short period of time. As I say, there's still a lot left to do if you wanted to really make it believable and more interesting and decent. But I think for the most part, it's pretty good. It's not bad. You're pretty much just limited by your own creativity and your own imagination. I mean, stuff like this. Started dirtying the ground here, removing some of the grass, if you will. You'll be able to see it more up here. But by building in these steps and stuff, there's like a dedicated path that's almost been formed now, just by using the paint. But yeah, that's pretty much everything from me today. Hopefully some of this helps you. Fingers crossed it does. I'm going to continue with videos like this, and if you want to see more like this, please let me know. If you've got any tips and tricks yourself, throw them down in the comments. I'm always willing to learn. This is literally just what I have picked up from having a play around in the system. If I'm doing something horrendously wrong and you know it's going to crash my game in like an hour's time if I carry on, again, let me know. I'm still learning. And I guess until next time, ladies and gents, have a good one.